7 months after their divorce, he came face to face with an incredible surprise. She was pregnant. Brad wiped his dirty hands on a rag, exhaustion tugging at his bones. Surrounded by rusting car frames and scattered metal parts in the small Midwestern town that had been his home for a lifetime, he felt the weight of his life pressing down as heavily as the storm clouds brewing overhead. He'd poured himself into work ever since the divorce, the cacophony of drills and hammers drowning out the memories of laughter, the family moments that seemed so perfect just a year ago. Now they were just ghosts haunting the corners of the garage, reminders of what he had once cherished. With a sigh, he decided to break away from the clatter of the shop for a moment of peace at the local cafe. The rich aroma of coffee offered a fleeting comfort as he took a seat, slipping into routine. Then he saw her. Lisa. She stood by the counter, her presence stitching a tension-laden thread between them. 7 months apart hadn't dulled the flash of recognition in her eyes, nor did it eclipse the memories they shared. Dancing to "I Will Always Love You" in their living room, the look on her face on their wedding day. But now, an invisible barrier loomed, thick with unsaid sentiments and unhealed wounds. "Hey, Brad," she said, a hint of nostalgia in her smile. "Haven't seen you in a while." "Yeah, just busy with work and Sophie," he replied, feeling the knot in his stomach tighten. Small talk became an uneasy game of darts, each word striking him with a mixture of warmth and pain, like a distant echo of their past. Every eye contact felt charged, stirring up a whirlwind of memories, holiday traditions, family hikes, the mundane yet comforting rhythm of their life together. And then it hit him, like a punch to the gut. "I have something to tell you," Lisa said. And in that moment, everything fell silent. "I'm pregnant. Quite far along." The words hung, tangible yet incomprehensible, an electric jolt sparking through the cafe, rendering time obsolete. Brad's heart raced, confusion swirling in his mind like loose debris caught in a gust of wind. Lingered affection turned to panic as thoughts collided. How could this be happening? Did she even think about how it would affect Sophie? The emergence of this new life felt starkly out of place in the wreckage of their marriage. Caught in the throes of conflicting emotions, Brad wrestled with the reality of becoming a father again, overwhelmed by an innate desire to protect his daughter and the remnant love he felt for Lisa. Would Sophie be able to handle it? This child, growing in Lisa's belly, could shift the very ground beneath their already shaky family structure. He stepped outside, his chest tight as he staggered back to his truck, the rain beginning to fall in sync with his escalating despair. As he gripped the steering wheel, his heart churned with the unbearable tension, unable to escape the weight of uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Brad's phone buzzed, Sophie's name lighting up the screen. "Dad, I'm really worried about everything. Things are different now." Her voice trembled, filling him with anguish, amplifying the storm brewing inside him. He wanted to protect her from this chaos, a chaos he was now trapped within. The rhythm of his heart matched the steady drizzle falling outside, almost drowning him with worry. In that empty parking lot, shadows enveloping him, he was left standing at an intersection of past and future, haunted by what it meant to reconcile love and the looming responsibilities of fatherhood once more. Could he navigate this fractured path while shielding Sophie from the turmoil? Would he ever find his footing again amidst this unrelenting downpour? The road ahead felt impossibly long, stretching out into an uncertain future, leaving him hanging on the precipice of emotional disarray as shadows deepened around him. Brad sat in the cramped confines of his truck, rain pelting the windshield like the chaos of his thoughts. He had always prided himself on being the steady one, the protector, the provider. But the shimmering foundation of his identity was cracking. He could almost hear the echo of his father's voice reminding him to stay strong, to take the reins when life tried to steer you off course. Yet, here he was, unsure how to navigate the jagged terrain of a family that felt irreparably fractured. As Sophie's words replayed in his mind, he fought back the suffocating weight of shame. He'd promised to be there for her, to shield her from hurt. How could he do that when he was struggling to manage his own reality? He took a deep breath, feeling the chill of the damp air seep into his bones, a reminder that nothing felt the same anymore. Not his life, not his priorities, and certainly not his vision for the future. He needed clarity. A plan. The inflection point drew nearer. He couldn't simply let life decide for him. Tension constricted his chest, igniting the once quenched determination within him. Wrestling with the decision, he turned the truck's heater up, adopting a practical mindset for the impending conversation. It was time to talk to Lisa, not just as an ex-wife, but as the co-parent of their future. She didn't create this situation alone. They were in it together. In a matter of moments, he had the engine humming, and he found himself retracing his route towards the cafe, gearing up for a confrontation that felt brand new, yet painfully familiar. The sight of Lisa again would stir a multitude of forgotten feelings. He'd have to tread carefully, balancing sensitivity with the urgency of making her understand how important their joint decisions were for Sophie. As he stepped out into the light drizzle, the freshness of the air invigorated him, invigorating a sense of purpose. He marched through the cafe's entrance, spotting Lisa sitting at the same table, a hesitant look in her eyes as they met. That old spark was entangled with uncertainty, yet still mutual. "Can we talk?" he asked, both his tone commanding and tentative. He signaled for her to join him outside, where the rain had lightened to a subtle mist that felt surreal, almost like a cleansing ritual. "The cafe feels too confining right now," he admitted, and she nodded in understanding. They stepped out, momentarily shielded by the cafe's overhang. "I spoke to Sophie," he continued, his heart thundering in his chest. "She's worried. We both need to understand what this means for her, for us all." Lisa bit her lip, her gaze wavering. "I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you'd react differently," she admitted, vulnerability cracking through her veneer. "Different how?" Brad pressed, leaning forward, refusing to let this slip into a cycle of blame. "Like, happy?" she answered, vulnerability softening her rigid stance. "Happy?" A bitter laugh escaped him, startling them both. "We're divorced, Lisa. We need to think about what this baby means, not just for us, but for Sophie too." She looked pained, a myriad of emotions fluttering across her face. Fear, doubt, a glimmer of hope. "You're right, we really need to take responsibility here." Brad studied her, this woman who once shared his dreams. With each passing moment, it became clearer that this wasn't just about a new pregnancy or their past. It revolved around building something for Sophie, stitching together a family piece by piece, finding a common ground again. Reassessing the space between them, he began contemplating the skills he had neglected during their tumultuous separation. The ability to communicate and collaborate, qualities cultivated over years of marriage. Could that same spirit of collaboration help him build a path forward? Thus began a tentative negotiation, their words forming the scaffolding to something neither had believed possible, understanding. But as they began to navigate through their murky predicament, another thought flickered in Brad's mind, a flicker of light amongst the dark. What would his role be with this new child? Was there a way to transcend the confines of their fractured relationship and emerge as partners in parenting once more? As he pondered this, the answer felt almost tangible, elusive yet within reach, like the faintest glow of dawn breaking through a stormy night. Yet before he could voice his thoughts, the cafe door swung open unexpectedly, an unfamiliar figure stepping outside, drawing their focus away, someone from his past he hadn't anticipated. Who were they, and what did their presence mean for Brad's burgeoning resolve? As the figure emerged from the cafe, Brad's heart raced, disrupting the tentative calm that had enveloped him and Lisa. The silhouette was unmistakably familiar. Sarah, a college friend, and a vibrant presence from a chapter in his life he thought he had neatly closed. Memories of carefree days and youthful dreams flickered through his mind, an exhilarating yet unsettling reminder of everything he had since lost. "Brad?" Her voice broke through the gauzy mist of his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. Confusion danced on her features, then morphed into an expression of concern as she took in the scene before her. The palpable tension between him and Lisa was unmistakable, and he felt an immediate defensive instinct rise within him. "Sarah, hey, how's it going?" he replied, his tone attempting casualness, but cracking under the pressure of the moment. "Not bad, but it looks like you two are having a serious talk. Everything okay?" She shifted slightly, the concern deepening in her eyes as she focused on him. He swallowed hard, his internal conflict battling for supremacy. Should he invite her into this challenging moment? Would it distract from the pivotal dialogue he had started with Lisa? Yet, a part of him recognized that their history could hold the key to a perspective he needed. Just navigating some family matters, Brad replied cautiously, stealing a glance at Lisa. She was watching him intently, processing each word, and he sensed a subtle shift in the air. An opportunity. "Anything I can do?" Sarah offered, her earnestness tugging at the edges of his determination. He realized he could draw on her perceptions, perhaps rekindling that old spark of connection to avail them both some clarity. "I guess I could use an outside opinion," he admitted, glancing back to Lisa, who nodded, showing she understood the route he was taking. She had always appreciated input from trusted friends. Perhaps they could leverage Sarah's insights to redefine the framework around their new family dynamic. "Sure," Sarah said, stepping closer with an encouraging smile, like an old friend willing to lend her ear. "What's going on?" Brad took a deep breath, pushing past the unease within him. "Well, we're navigating an unexpected situation. Lisa is pregnant again." His voice faltered slightly on the words, the implications hitting him like a cold wave. This conversation was no longer just between him and Lisa. It took on an additional weight with Sarah's presence. "Wow," Sarah breathed, absorbing the revelation. "That's a lot. How are you both feeling about it?" He glanced at Lisa, who appeared resolute despite the impending storm they were weathering. They were at a junction, unable to go back to their previous normal, but still not yet equipped for what lay ahead. He wanted to voice his fears, the uncertainty of how they would manage yet another layer of complexity. But the words eluded him. "Sophie is really worried about everything," he finally said, his voice steadying with the moments of honesty. "This adds a whole new dimension to our family, and we want to address it, together. Being co-parents is challenging enough. Now there's this new baby." Sarah looked thoughtfully at him before turning to Lisa. "It's a tough situation for sure, but you two seem to be tackling it head-on. That's important. Have you talked about how you want to handle things moving forward?" "We're trying to," Brad answered, feeling an unfamiliar sense of solidarity in the mix of heartbreak and hope. Perhaps this conversation meant digging deeper into his fears, breaking down the intricacies of co-parenting again, while staying a family, if not as partners, then as co-guardians. As they delved into more shaded discussions, the barrier of discomfort began to fracture. Brad realized clarity was emerging through vulnerability. By inviting Sarah into this convoluted web, he was not only harnessing her presence for support, but also expanding his own sense of responsibility and commitment. Yet just as he felt the momentum build, another thought anchored itself in his mind. Sarah's past intertwining with their present felt precarious. Was he ready to unleash complexities he had kept buried? Would this reunion with an old friend fracture the delicate dynamics he was attempting to forge with Lisa? Before he could contemplate further, Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping their focus momentarily. She quickly glanced at the screen, and the expression on her face shifted dramatically. "I have to take this. It's important," Sarah said abruptly, her voice laced with urgency. As she stepped away to answer, Brad's thoughts raced. Would reconvening with someone who once knew him shape the future he was trying to build? As Lisa placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, they both knew the very real question looming. Would he step into the fray or retreat into the shadows of his past? The air in the cafe felt thicker, almost electric, as Brad watched Sarah step away to take her call. He felt an unsettling twinge in his stomach, a potent mix of anxiety and unresolved histories stirring within him. Lisa's hand on his shoulder remained a grounding force, her presence both familiar and intimidating as he grappled with the weight of the conversation. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice cutting through the chaos of his thoughts. "Yeah, I'm just processing things." Brad rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the tension coiled there. "This is a lot to unpack." "Tell me about it," Lisa replied with a hint of humor aimed at softening the moment. "A whole new layer on top of everything else." He chuckled lightly in response, but the laughter felt hollow. His mind drifted back to the life he envisioned before the split. Carefree adventures, shared dreams, uncomplicated days. "Do you think we can really do this?" he finally asked, shifting the burden of uncertainty from his mind to theirs. "Another child? More responsibilities?" Doubts loomed large, like storm clouds threatening to break. Lisa met his gaze, her eyes revealing a strength he longed to borrow. "I believe we can, if we work together, if we trust each other." Trust. The word echoed in his mind with a heavy resonance. It wasn't just about their relationship. It was an invitation into a new realm of vulnerability and faith. He wanted to believe it was possible. He wanted to step into that trust. But the problem was that the roadmap ahead felt murky. As a child of divorce himself, Brad knew all too well the terrain of fractured families. During his upbringing, he witnessed the detrimental effects of unresolved conflicts and unspoken fears. He didn't want to mirror that past. Have you thought about what kind of co-parenting setup we want? Lisa's question pulled him from his thoughts. Her approach was direct and practical, a characteristic he admired. I think we should be open about our expectations, he responded, the words tumbling out in an attempt to structure his wild thoughts. What's the best way to make sure Sophie transitions smoothly? How do we approach the new baby while considering all of this? Lisa was quiet for a moment. I've considered it. We can create a joint plan, like a family mission statement or something. We must prioritize family communication and keep Sophie in the loop. It's important for her, especially. He felt a flicker of hope at the idea, but anxiety still clung. That sounds like a solid start. But what do we do when disagreements arise? How can we avoid falling back into old habits? Their shared history required attention. The past held lessons that were necessary, albeit painful. For them to succeed, they'd need to confront those patterns rather than sidestep them. That's where Sarah comes in, Lisa said perceptively. She knows us both. Maybe she could act as a mediator at times, someone we can lean on when discussions become too heated. Was he ready to invite her into this new chapter? Brad scrutinized the thought, an internal debate igniting. On one hand, reconnecting with Sarah felt precarious. On the other, her perspective might just help navigate the complexities of their family. Before he could voice his doubts, Sarah returned from her call, the urgency replaced by an air of determination. I'm really sorry about that. Thank you for waiting. Her gaze swept between them, picking up on the seriousness that lingered in the air. I think we were just discussing how we can move forward, Brad offered, summoning his resolve. A small smile crept onto Sarah's face as she settled in beside them. I'd love to lend a hand if needed. You know I care about both of you. He glanced at Lisa, then back at Sarah. But we're treading new ground here. It's important that we define boundaries. Absolutely, Sarah agreed, her tone earnest. Setting boundaries will be crucial for all of us. I want to help, but I don't want to overstep either. I'm here to provide support, not take sides. As they forged onward through dialogue, Brad realized engagement was both frightening and freeing. He could either shut down and retreat, protecting his fragile stability, or embrace this discourse and possibly reclaim a connection that, perhaps, he longed for deep down. Yet just as clarity flickered, another intrusion echoed. His phone buzzed, bringing unexpected news. Glancing down, his heart jolted. It was a message from his mother about Sophie's upcoming school project, something he'd forgotten. That pulse tugged him back into the present disarray. The juxtaposition of routine responsibilities against the monumental task of redefining their family structure hung ominously in the air. As he tilted his gaze up again, a rush of realization dawned. This chaotic intersection of old friendships, new responsibilities, and mounting anxieties represented not just a challenge, but an opportunity, an invitation to learn, grow, and recreate a blueprint of familial resilience. But despite all the commitments he wanted to make, each decision marked with hope, one question slithered back into his mind. Was he truly prepared to navigate this journey without losing sight of himself along the way? And just like that, it became clear. The time had come for Brad to reconnect with his inner compass, to confront not just the intricate web of relationships, but the most perplexing riddle of all, himself. Brad took a deep breath, attempting to center himself amidst the conflicting emotions roiling within. He felt the weight of the conversation pressing down on him, but alongside that weight came a flicker of determination, the promise of personal evolution. In life's unpredictable dance, he recognized that remaining static was not an option anymore. If he was to embrace a future built on trust and co-parenting, he first needed to navigate the labyrinth of his own fears and insecurities. As his thoughts swelled with echoes of his childhood and parental disarray, he pulled himself away from the precipice of despair by recalling the new strategy Lisa had suggested. A family mission statement. What a revolutionary idea for someone like him, weighed heavily by the shadows of past mistakes. The notion offered both clarity and a means of solidifying their intentions as a family unit. Perhaps the act of putting pen to paper could help anchor him amidst the chaos. "Maybe we should schedule a family meeting," he proposed, his voice sounding steadier than he felt. "We can brainstorm and perhaps even write out what we envision for our family. Each of us could contribute what we want our new dynamics to look like." Lisa smiled, her enthusiasm palpable. "I like that. It allows us to articulate our hopes and expectations together. It can help eliminate misunderstandings before they have a chance to take root." "Agreed," Sarah chimed in. "And since I'm here, I can facilitate that meeting whenever you both feel ready." The prospect invigorated him, pushing Brad a step further out of his comfort zone. Co-creating a family vision was not just about formalizing roles. It was an essential exercise in vulnerability, exposing himself, his ambitions, and his willingness to reform alongside the people he cared for most. He couldn't halt the evolving dynamic of their lives, but he could actively shape its trajectory. As the chatter swirled around him, Brad found himself wrestling with deeper questions, the kind that brought him face to face with his insecurities head-on. Did he possess the emotional resilience to be the father his children needed? Could he navigate the tumult of co-parenting, guarding his personal well-being while fostering a nurturing environment for Sophie and their new child? Once more, he withdrew into his thoughts, pushing past feelings of inadequacy. A part of him felt like a rookie, a frazzled father-to-be attempting to play a part in a script he had never rehearsed. Yet just then, amidst those jagged thoughts, a revelation broke through. Perhaps it wasn't about performing to perfection. It was about showing up, making mistakes, and learning from them. "Can we also include sections about dealing with conflict?" he interjected. "There will be disagreements. How can we ensure our discussions model respect for Sophie? I want to avoid toxic patterns." Lisa nodded thoughtfully. "That's an important component. Open communication will be vital, absolutely. We should include conflict resolution strategies in our planning." The warmth of their camaraderie filled him with hope. It felt like a turning point, a foundation upon which his scattered ambitions could be built. These foundational values not only hinged on words, but also on action. After a moment, he leaned back in his chair, feeling more at ease. "Let's draft it out over the week, and then we can come together at the cafe again. Or maybe too much cafe is a bad idea," he added with a chuckle, trying to inject lightness into the gravity of their discussions. Sarah laughed, the sound a balm to his tension. "No such thing as too much cafe while planning such a life-altering project." Their laughter built a bridge of connection over the treacherous waters of history. Inspired by this new path toward confrontation and collaboration, Brad felt empowered. Yet even as moments of lightness pervaded their conversation, a deeper apprehension simmered beneath the surface, a realization that he was merely beginning to open the door to deeper emotional exploration. By lunchtime they parted ways, and as the warm sunlight streamed down upon him, Brad's mind focused more on the potential of momentum rather than the weight of the past. Each step felt lighter than the last, yet he understood that this was only the surface of a more complex journey ahead. When he returned home, he found himself drawn to the clutter of his workspace, a mix of parenting books and memory boxes. Each item served as a reminder of the man he had been and the father he aimed to become. Flipping through the childhood pictures, he recognized a latent, untapped resolve deep within him. But as night fell and solitude beckoned, Brad grappled with another layer of fear. What if he faltered? What if the very relationships he wished to rebuild were marred by his inexplicable need for control and stability? The question tightened around him like a vice, challenging his newfound resolve. And so, with the shadows creeping across the walls, he felt trapped between the aspiration to grow and the haunting memories of past failures that echoed. What if? For Brad, the thrilling possibility of transformation mingled uneasily with uncertainty. The next steps he took would need to reaffirm his commitment, not only to his family, but also to his own growth. Was he ready to confront the truth of who he was, the vulnerabilities he faced, and the demands of fatherhood ahead? The path to personal evolution beckoned, but success lay on the other side of self-examination and bold prophecy, waiting for him to grasp it. After a night fraught with self-doubt, Brad woke up determined to flatten the anxiety tugging at him like an anchor. The sun streamed into his bedroom, illuminating the path before him, but the thought of facing the day brought about a lingering sense of dread. He knew he had commitments to fulfill, both to himself and to his family. In the wake of their prior discussions, the family meeting loomed ahead, but he couldn't shake the worry that his past mistakes might overshadow any progress they'd made. As he brewed his morning coffee, he replayed the potential conversations in his mind, envisioning scenarios that ranged from supportive to contested. He poured his thoughts into a small notebook, jotting down key objectives for their meeting: openness, clarity, cooperation. Yet with each scribble, he became increasingly aware of a crack in his resolve, a deeper, unshakable fear. What if he was not equipped to fulfill the role he sought? What if he failed to reach the benchmarks he had set for himself? This nagging self-interrogation haunted him, but Brad couldn't afford to let it fester. Taking a deep breath, he flipped to the first page of the parenting book he'd read, seeking inspiration from the words of others. The chapters spoke on nurturing relationships, acknowledging imperfections. A steady pulse of courage surged through him as he absorbed the notion that intentionality was key. It was not about being flawless, but rather about engaging honestly with the process. Armed with a renewed sense of purpose, Brad decided to prepare a visual display for the upcoming meeting, a colorful chart outlining their family mission statement. It would serve as both a conversation starter and a tangible reminder of their intentions. Would it be childish to use colors and visuals? Perhaps, but deep down, he acknowledged that vulnerability stemmed from authenticity, and this initiative represented just that. The day of the family meeting arrived, filling him with both anticipation and anxiety. He arrived at the cafe slightly earlier to set up the board, decorating it with various markers and drawings. As Lisa and Sarah walked in, he stood beside his makeshift creation, a mix of nervousness and excitement boiling within him. "Wow, Brad," Lisa smiled, examining the chart. "I love how you visualized our ideas." "This is great," Sarah added, her eyes lighting up. "It feels personal, like we're putting our family identity right out there." Brad felt the warmth of their acceptance bolster his confidence. Maybe these first steps, unexpected and vulnerable, could yield the change he yearned for. They began discussing their values, hopes, and even fears, and with each shared thought, Brad noticed a release, an easing of the weight he'd been carrying. Through navigating his insecurities in real time, he was learning how to articulate rather than internalize them. As they delved into conflict resolution strategies, the conversation shifted, revealing each participant's concerns and hopes. When the topic of grounding discussions in respect for Sophie's perspective arose, Brad spoke from a deeper place of understanding. "We need to aim for respect to guide our talks, remembering that Sophie's feelings matter above all. It shouldn't be about winning a conversation, but about coming together." Their insights blended not like jumbled notes, but rather like a well-composed symphony, creating a new harmony among them. With each suggestion, Brad felt an emotional anchor being formed. Yet beneath this current of positivity, a flicker of trepidation lingered. What if they strayed from this path? As the meeting drew to a close, Brad couldn't ignore an unsettling feeling creeping in again. His insecurities resurfaced, bringing new questions. Was this renewed foundation strong enough to weather future storms? Would they remain committed to these values amid conflicts that would undoubtedly arise? The cafe buzzed with activity around them as laughter and chatter floated through the air. Brad felt insignificant amid the joy of others. What if their perceptions of him didn't align with the growth he was attempting to embody? As they concluded the meeting and made decisions to revisit the mission statement weekly, he sensed a turning point, a pivotal inflection in the narrative of their lives. But the solitude of the drive home wrapped around him like a shroud, and he couldn't shake the pressing need to confront his limitations directly. The moment of truth had come. Should he allow himself to embrace a new, authentic version of fatherhood, free from the specters of his past? As he parked in front of his home, the weight of unanswered questions loomed larger than ever. What awaited him inside, and what transformation might occur if he dared to persist through the uncertainty? The moment Brad stepped inside his home, the familiar scent of lavender and fresh laundry struck him, bringing with it a conflicting wave of comfort and unease. He could hear Lisa and Sarah bustling in the kitchen, laughter bouncing off the walls like a melody. Briefly allowing himself a moment of tranquility, he sighed and leaned against the doorframe, feeling the weight of their earlier discussions mingling with the impending reality awaiting him. "Dad, we're making your favorite," Sarah called cheerfully, oblivious to the undercurrent of anxiety coursing through him as he rounded the corner. The clattering of pots and pans was accompanied by the warm glow of their laughter. Yet, amidst that warmth, he could feel the chill of his self-doubt creeping back in. Was he the father they needed, especially now that they were starting anew? Taking a deep breath, Brad joined them at the kitchen island, glancing at the ingredients strewn about. It struck him how ordinary yet profound such simple moments were. Each meal, each laugh, peeled back the layers of guilt he felt, the remnants of his past failures, while simultaneously confronting him with a choice: to either succumb to the weight of his previous transgressions or to fully embrace this opportunity for growth. "Looks delicious, team." He feigned enthusiasm, though his heart was racing, thoughts swirling in his head like a tempest. He decided to engage. "What's the plan for today? Any family traditions I can help with?" Lisa, confident and composed, looked back at him, her brow raised. "Well, we might have a new tradition brewing. We thought we could start a weekly game night. Board games, snacks, and maybe a little friendly rivalry?" Her suggestion ignited a flicker of excitement in Brad. The idea of creating new rituals appealed to him, but the specter of doubt unanswered surged again. Would they genuinely enjoy spending time together, or would his past missteps taint their joy? "Sure, I'm all in. Just know I'm undefeated at Monopoly." He attempted to inject a playful spirit into the room, but his insides fluttered with uncertainty. "Undefeated?" Sarah chimed in, playfully rolling her eyes. "That's a challenge. You might actually get a run for your money from us." Their light banter did ease his trepidation momentarily, yet the conversations from their earlier meeting hung in the air like an unresolved melody, reminding him of the deeper issues simmering beneath the surface. As they passed spices and laughed about culinary misadventures, he began to contemplate how important it was to blend the echoes of old experiences with this fresh foundation. He resolved to maintain transparency and address conflicts openly. But doubts persisted. What if his yearning for a moment of authenticity led to another turbulent discussion? He had opened the door to vulnerability, and now he was terrified it would not lead to the outcomes he envisioned. He needed to confront not only his capabilities as a father, but also the shadows of his past. Then, in the midst of this internal whirlwind, the door swung open, and in walked Sophia, a surprise guest that momentarily stole the air from his lungs. She carried an earthy warmth, but all he could notice was the bated breath of anxiety pushing through him like an overwhelming tide. Memories of their shared moments surfaced. A rush of affection mixed with discomfort surged through him. "Sophia, what a surprise!" he exclaimed, attempting to mask his bewilderment behind a facade of casual friendliness. She smiled back, the bravado in her demeanor reminding him that their connection, complicated as it was, held a history. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," she said lightly, but the undertone of her words cast a strange tension over the room. As laughter subsided and uncertainty cradled their reunion, Brad's heart raced. What was she doing here? This seemingly innocuous visit felt like the beginnings of a storm. Would her presence be another opportunity for reconciliation, or merely a complication that would derail his newfound commitment to being present for his family? Whatever direction this encounter would go, one burning thought seized him. The choices made in this unfolding moment could mean everything. And with that realization, he sensed that the way forward demanded confrontation, confronting his past, Sophia, and their shared history. The echoes of their unfinished business hung between them, palpable and urgent. What truth lay hidden in this unexpected reunion, and how would it shape the fragile foundation they'd begun to build? Brad's mind raced as he absorbed the weight of Sophia's unexpected presence. The kitchen, once a sanctuary filled with warmth and laughter, felt suddenly stifling, like a pressure cooker with the lid about to blow off. He could sense the curiosity of Lisa and Sarah, slicing through the tension with their innocent chatter, completely unaware of the emotional tempest brewing within him. "So, Sophia, are you in the neighborhood?" Lisa asked, breaking the silence, her tone neutral but her eyes flicking between the two of them, searching for clues to the nature of their interaction. Yes, just passing through," Sophia replied, her voice steady but her gaze betraying a hint of uncertainty as she fumbled with the edge of her jacket. "I thought I'd drop by and see how you were all doing." Brad's heart sank, grappling with a mix of past affection and present confusion. This visit held the potential for closure or chaos. He hadn't anticipated this confrontation. He had thought the hardest part of moving on would be repairing his relationship with his family, not revisiting the ghosts of his past. "Come in, really," he managed to say, forcing a smile while trying to gauge what her intentions might be. "We were just getting ready for a family game night." "Game night?" Sophia raised an eyebrow, a wry smile playing across her lips. "I might have to join in on the fun. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve." The playful challenge opened a crack in the tension, and he could see Sarah's face light up with the prospect of competition. But Brad felt as though he were being pulled in two directions. Could he let himself engage in playful banter while wrestling with the implications of her presence? As the evening progressed, Brad's thoughts drifted between the warmth of family moments and the heavy shadow Sophia cast across his psyche. What did she mean by coming back now? Did she want to reconcile? Or was this an emotional test he didn't feel prepared to face? After a few rounds of Monopoly, where he found himself struggling to focus on the game, he felt an overwhelming desire to break through the facades. They gathered for dinner, and with everyone seated, the atmosphere felt precariously balanced. "Brad, is everything all right? You seem distracted," Lisa said, capturing his attention. Sophia's eyes lingered on him, bearing her own vulnerabilities. I've just been thinking about," he stammered, the words catching in his throat, "about how we move forward." "Forward? Is that what we are doing?" Sophia interjected with a quiet intensity, her voice a thread weaving into the fabric of the gathering. They were at a crossroads, and he could sense the urgency in her inquiry. Feeling a surge of determination, he decided now was the moment to confront the history that loomed like an uninvited guest. "You know, Sophia, I'm trying to rebuild my life here with my family. I can't deny our past, but I need to focus on being present for them now. What is this visit really about?" Time seemed to suspend as her expression shifted from surprise to something more contemplative. It was a question that hung in the air, echoes of unspoken words swirling around the table. "I came because—" Her next words hung precariously, thickening the air with anticipation. As he locked eyes with her, Brad felt the ground shift beneath him. The trust he had been building with Lisa and Sarah, the familial rhythm they were just beginning to establish, now felt threatened by Sophia's presence. In that instant, clarity washed over him. He had to confront not just Sophia's intentions, but also the parts of himself that remained tethered to the past. To recover his own voice in this family dynamic, he needed to navigate this fragile moment wisely. "What do you want from us, Sophia?" he asked, the urgency in his voice reflecting not only his apprehension, but his determination to protect his newfound stability. The silence that followed felt heavy and expectant. She opened her mouth, her expression shifting, and for a heartbeat it seemed as if time would stand still. What was about to unfold could change everything, and he felt poised on the edge of a precipice, ready to either leap towards understanding or plunge into chaos. As Sophia's response hovered in the charged atmosphere, Brad's heart raced with the realization that the true test of his personal growth had only just begun. Brad held his breath as Sophia took a deep breath, her gaze piercing through the dim light of the dining room. For a moment, he wished for the ability to rewind time, to retreat to the safer realm of board games and family laughter. Instead, he found himself clutching the thread of his response. "I came because I wanted to see if there's a chance for us," she finally said, her voice steady yet laced with vulnerability. The truth landed heavily, filling the space around them with a weight that threatened to slice through the fragile fabric of their present. The sincerity in her words stirred a whirlwind of emotions within Brad. Could he truly believe that? That after months of separation, after painstakingly piecing together a new life, Sophia would appear and suggest a rekindling of what they had? Was it honest longing, or merely a nostalgic whim? The sound of Sarah and Lisa's chatter faded into an ethereal background hum, their innocent joy contrasting starkly with the turmoil rising within him. Everything he had worked for, the restoration of trust, the reconnection with Lisa and Sarah, stood at risk of crumbling under the weight of that very inquiry. Collecting his thoughts, Brad leaned forward, narrowing the distance between them. "Sophia," he started, his voice calm but firm. "You need to understand. I'm not that man anymore. I fought hard to become a better version of myself. You can't just what? Walk away from our past?" she interjected, an edge creeping into her tone, but her eyes softened with a familiarity that made him ache. "You think I don't know how much you've changed? I see it. I've felt it. That's why I'm here." The room, thick with tension, seemed to pulse around them. A wave of doubt coursed through him. Did he truly have the strength to manage this confrontation without unraveling the progress he had made? "I'm building a life that revolves around my family," he said, trying to assert his boundaries while resisting the pull of their shared history. "This isn't about going back, it's about moving on, for both of us." But as he spoke, he felt a pang of hesitation. Was he truly ready to shut the door completely? The emotion stirred by their reunion had ignited something raw, something he couldn't ignore. "I know," Sophia replied softly, her expression shifting from longing to acceptance. "I don't expect us to just snap back to what we had. I just wanted—" She sighed, frustration and hope colliding in her features. To talk about what's unresolved. Brad took a moment, allowing her words to sink in. What had been intended as a simple game night had shifted into something profound, a confrontation with buried feelings. He was standing at a fork in the road, faced with the potential to explore a past that he thought he had left behind, or reaffirm his commitment to the future he envisioned with his family. But what would that future look like if he didn't confront these complexities? He needed to weigh everything carefully, to determine whether resolving this lingering connection with Sophia would ultimately fuel his growth or lead him astray. "I can't promise anything, Sophia," he finally said, his heart pounding with the gravity of his next words. "But maybe we can talk more, find some clarity?" Sophia nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of relief and apprehension. "I'd like that. It's important to me." Just as he felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos, he remembered Lisa and Sarah in the room, the innocence of their laughter grounding him. How would they react to the conversations that were bound to happen? Would he place his family in the midst of this emotional upheaval? As they continued to exchange tentative words, the clatter of dishes and distant sounds of their game night pulsed through the air. Brad felt the weight of impending decisions hovering over him. The crossroads were stark and immediate. Outside, the winds had begun to change, mirroring the transformation taking place inside. The moment felt fleeting, yet profound, and as Sophia's gaze locked with his, he realized he stood on the precipice of change, a change that would demand courage on every level of his life. Was he prepared to navigate this landscape? As he found the strength to address his past, he felt the dawning sense that the clarity he sought could hinge on the revelations of tomorrow. What was the next step in this unfolding drama? He breathed in deeply, aware that regardless of the outcome, the steps he would take now could either fortify or dismantle everything he had built. The next move was critical, and it was time to confront not only Sophia, but the intertwined realities of his existence. As they lingered in the charged atmosphere, a new message pinged on Brad's phone. It interrupted the whisper of possibility as he glanced at the screen. "We need to talk about our plans for the future." The sender was Lisa. With the punctuation of that message, Brad's heart raced at the weight of looming decisions yet to unfurl. What had he set in motion? The weight of Lisa's message crashed over Brad like a breaking wave. He felt a cocktail of nerves and anticipation swell within him, mingling with the quiet tension in the room. Sophia's unexpected visit had rekindled feelings he thought were buried deep. Yet here they were, surfacing in the most complicated of ways. "Hey, can we pause this for a second?" he said, glancing between Sophia and the flickering warmth of family laughter coming from the kitchen. It was necessary to address the urgency Lisa had summoned, to honor the commitment he'd made to his new family. "Sure," Sophia replied, observing his retreat with a mix of understanding and apprehension. A hint of vulnerability flickered in her eyes, highlighting the complexities of their reunion. Brad took a moment to collect himself. As he stepped into the adjacent hallway, away from the ambient chaos, he pulled out his phone, feeling a surge of responsibility overriding the emotional turbulence. He took a deep breath, allowing the noise of the world around him to fade away. "Everything okay?" he heard Lisa's voice resonating through the kitchen. "Yeah, give me a sec," he called back. Standing there, he felt the weight of his choices pressing down, yet knowledge surged through him in equal measure. This was the moment where he could forge a path forward, where clarity could emerge from confusion. Tapping on the message, he saw the words that struck like a clarion call. "We need to talk about our plans for the future." Brad recognized the significance. It wasn't just about discussing co-parenting or navigating Sophia's unexpected return. It was a broader invitation to articulate what their shared desires were for the family they were shaping together. After collecting his thoughts, he responded to Lisa with a brief acknowledgement, then turned back to Sophia. As he walked back into the kitchen, he noticed the lively atmosphere. Sarah and Lisa exchanging playful banter, the smell of rosemary wafting through the air, a stark contrast to his internal storm. "Let's sit down," he said gently, gathering them around the kitchen table. The weight of the conversation ahead settled upon him heavier than before, yet he felt a potent drive to elevate this dialogue. "Thank you both for being here. I think it's important that we have an open discussion about what's coming next. For everyone involved, especially for Sophie," he began, his voice steady yet calm, like the eye of the storm he had been weathering. Lisa nodded, appreciating his approach. He could see her reaffirming gaze, the silent encouragement pushing him to dive deeper into the conversation. "I feel compelled to address some unresolved questions with you, Sophia. I hope we can be honest about our intentions here. I can't ignore the past we share, but I also need to honor this present," he continued, gesturing to Lisa and Sarah. "They matter to me, and this new family means everything." Sophia nodded faintly, her expression shifting from anxiety to understanding. For a fleeting moment, he could see the old connection mirror in her eyes, a sparkle of familiarity that ignited powerful memories, memories he both cherished and struggled to leave behind. "I promise I don't want to disrupt your life, Brad," she replied, her voice wavering slightly. "I'm here to find a way to resolve the past, not invade your future." Those words resonated within him, and the belief that their dialogue could spark authentic closure surged through his chest. Looking at Lisa, he saw a woman who deserved commitment, a partnership built not on shadows, but on clarity and respect. "Thank you, Sophia. I really appreciate that," he said, making direct eye contact with her. "But I have to prioritize Sophie and the dynamics we're cultivating. I need you to understand that any decisions made from here on out need to factor her emotional well-being." With each word, he felt a growing certainty in his purpose. The swift currents of his past were no longer daunting. They were a canvas, blank and ready for fresh strokes. "Let's navigate this together," he suggested, laying down a new framework. "How do we set boundaries that respect both the past and the present? Can we include the expectation of communication, especially when it comes to family decisions?" This request was met with silence momentarily, as they all absorbed the gravity of his assertion. Sophia's furrowed brow hinted at the complexity of the emotions swirling internally, but Brad felt propelled forward by the desire for growth, a chance to demonstrate his evolution. "We need to agree that transparency is the cornerstone of this new dynamic," Lisa chimed in, her voice strong and resolute. "For Sophie, for us, I want us all to feel secure in our roles." Brad nodded appreciatively, buoyed by her honesty. Perhaps this was the turning point he had sought, the reassurance of shared values binding them front and center. Sophia's response came measured yet heartfelt. "I can agree to that, and know that I genuinely want the best for all of you. If we're going to navigate this, openness will be essential." Every intention they articulated helped dissolve the tension that had initially simmered between them. Here was the potential, a collective commitment to nurturing a family that included the past, but did not lose sight of the present's responsibilities. As they continued to refine their discussion, stepping away from emotional landmines, Brad felt a moment of grounding. They explored options to set a pace for future communication. A shared understanding blossomed between them, and the stranglehold of uncertainty slipped away. When they concluded, the atmosphere seemed lighter, saturated with the promise of renewal. Above all, he felt a palpable shift within himself, an affirmation of growth, the clarity he had long sought finally dawning upon him. In the corner of the kitchen, Sarah began collecting the dishes, and as she did, she glanced curiously at Brad and Sophia. "You both handled that well. It seems like things have become clearer," she commented, her words ringing true. "Clarity takes time, but we've opened a door," Brad replied, meeting Sophia's gaze one last time, their understandings crystallizing. As the evening slowly transitioned into night, the laughter resumed, and a flicker of possibility danced through the air, mingling with the sense of rosemary and thyme. He could envision a future, an unmistakable clarity woven into the dynamic of their family. Brad took a moment to reflect. This engagement was not merely a passage through conflict. It had become a robust framework of connection, one that unified his past and present, helping him realize that true parental achievement lay in a willingness to commit, evolve, and navigate change. The storm of uncertainty was finally yielding, and in its wake, he stood resolute, ready to face whatever came next. "Now let's see who's really the Monopoly champion," he said, breaking the tension anew, feeling the warmth of community around him. With that, he felt grounded in the truth that he could indeed forge a new identity, enriched by his past yet illuminated by the future ahead. As they prepared to engage once more in playful banter, he felt a deep gratitude for this journey, the unfolding of personal transformation that endured amidst the chaos of life, anchored by connection, clarity, and friendship. Now, his moment had arrived, and with it, the clarity to embrace a fulfilling, cohesive family life, moving forward together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Be part of this journey. You need to subscribe now to stay alerted for the next chapter of personal overcoming stories that inspire and evolve. Leave a like now to ensure these impactful stories reach a wider audience. Your support truly makes a difference. Comment below your thoughts and theories because your voice matters in this community. And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformative journey. Let's inspire growth together.